and her brother Zarun were bursting with excitement. Today was the day they would fly in an airplane for the first time. Their family was traveling to visit their grandparents in another city. At the airport, everything felt so big and new. Sania held her dad's hand tightly as they walked through security, while Zarun kept asking questions. How does the plane fly? Are we going above the clouds? Will there be snacks? Their mom smiled. You'll see soon. When they boarded the plane, Sania was amazed by the rows of seats and the small windows. Their seats were by the window, and Sania got the first turn to look outside. Wow, everything looks tiny, she whispered. The plane started moving, and Zarun squealed. We're going so fast. Soon, the plane lifted off the ground, and they both pressed their faces to the window. The houses and cars below looked like toys, and soon, fluffy white clouds surrounded them. It's like flying through cotton candy, said Sania. The flight attendants brought snacks, and Sania and Zarun munched happily while watching the world below. They even got to see the pilot when their dad took them to the cockpit for a quick peek. This is amazing, Zarun said, wide-eyed. When the plane landed, Sania turned to her brother and said, That was like riding a giant bird. Zarun grinned. Let's fly again soon. It was a day they would never forget. The heart of an ancient jungle, untouched by human hands, lay a secret whispered only among its inhabitants. This jungle was no ordinary place, it was alive, not just with creatures, but with a spirit that watched over all. The animals called it Zara, the soul of the forest. One day, a curious boy named Kian ventured into the jungle. Ignoring the warnings of the villagers, they told tales of the jungle swallowing those who entered uninvited. But Kian, armed with his sketchbook and endless curiosity, wanted to see the vibrant wildlife he had only read about. As Kian explored, he marveled at the towering trees, shimmering streams, and colorful birds. But as night fell, the jungle turned eerie. The rustling leaves seemed to whisper his name. Suddenly, a golden light appeared, and from it emerged a majestic tiger with eyes that seemed to hold centuries of wisdom. You do not belong here, the tiger said, its voice deep and calm. But I sense no harm in your heart. Why have you come? I wanted to see the beauty of this place, Kian replied, trembling. The tiger nodded. Few humans respect the jungle's balance. If you promise to protect it, I will show you its true wonders. Kian agreed, and the tiger led him to a hidden grove where trees sparkled like stars and streams sang melodies. There, Kian learned the jungle's rhythm, how every creature, plant, and drop of water worked in harmony. He saw tiny hummingbirds sipping nectar, monkeys swinging through branches, and glowing insects dancing in the dark. Kian understood the importance of every single element. The tiger taught him about the delicate balance of life and the need to respect nature. He also showed him the healing powers of some plants and the dangers that lurked if the balance was disrupted. He learned how to listen to the jungle, to understand its whispers, and to feel its heart. Kian spent days in the hidden grove, learning and sketching. He drew the sparkling trees and the singing streams, trying to capture the magic he felt. The tiger told him stories of the jungle's past, of its ancient trees and wise animals. Kian began to feel like he belonged, like he was a part of the jungle's soul. When he returned home, Kian shared what he had seen, becoming the jungle's protector. He taught the villagers about the jungle's importance, and they became its guardians too, ensuring it remained untouched for generations to come. He often returned to the jungle, not as a visitor, but as a friend, always listening to Zara's whispers and honoring the lessons he learned. Town, there lived a skilled but notorious thief named Armin. His hands were quick, his plans flawless, and his escapes legendary. Yet, deep inside, Armin carried a heavy burden of guilt. He justified his actions as survival, but he couldn't escape the nagging voice of his conscience. One quiet evening, Armin broke into the modest home of an elderly widow, Amma Zainab. As he crept through the dimly lit room, he froze at the sound of her voice. Why sneak around, my son? Come here and sit. Armin, startled, turned to see her seated near a small lantern, sewing. Her calm demeanor disarmed him. I have nothing worth stealing, she said softly. But if you're in need, take what little all I have. All I ask is this. Reflect on what you truly want from life. Armin was speechless. No one had ever spoken to him with such kindness. He left that night empty-handed, but her words stayed with him. The next morning, Armin wandered the bustling market, her voice echoing in his mind. That's when he saw a child crying over a broken toy. Using his quick hands, Armin repaired it with ease. The child's smile filled him with an unfamiliar warmth. Inspired, Armin began using his skills for good mending, crafting, and helping others in need. Over time, the thief turned into the town's most beloved craftsman. Amma Zainab's compassion had sparked a change in him, proving that even the hardest hearts can find redemption. The people marveled at his change. He found joy in helping others. His life was filled with purpose. Every day, he remembered the widow's words. He often visited her to share his stories. She always smiled and nodded. She knew her words had made a difference. His past was a distant memory. His future was filled with kindness. He became a symbol of hope for the town. He proved that even the most difficult people can change. His story became a legend. The ocean. Every evening, he sat on the shore, watching waves crash and wondering what lay beneath. One day, while collecting shells, he found a shimmering blue stone. As soon as he touched it, a voice whispered, "Arian, hold your breath and dive in." Curious, Arian jumped into the water. To his surprise, he could breathe underwater. Fish darted past, and as he swam deeper, everything turned magical. Soon, he reached a golden gate guarded by 2 seahorses. "Welcome, Arian. The kingdom of Aquaria awaits you," they said. Inside, Arian saw coral castles, glowing jellyfish lighting the streets, and friendly sea creatures. A kind mermaid named Laya greeted him. "The ocean chose you, Arian," she said. "We need your help. The pearl of light, which keeps our kingdom safe, has been stolen by the shadow eel." Determined to help, Arian accepted. Laya gave him a magical trident for protection. They swam through dark caves and tunnels until they found the shadow eel guarding the pearl. "The pearl is mine," the eel hissed. Arian stood firm, using the trident to create a whirlpool that trapped the eel. He grabbed the pearl and swam back to the kingdom. When the pearl of light was restored, the kingdom glowed brighter than ever. The king of Aquaria thanked Arian and gave him the blue stone. "Hold this to return any time," he said. Back on the shore, Arian held the stone and smiled, knowing a magical world waited beneath the waves. Loving couple, Sarah and David, lived happily with their baby, Leo, and their loyal golden retriever, Bruno. Bruno wasn't just a pet, he was family, a gentle giant always watching over Leo. One afternoon, Leo, in his crawling explorations, edged dangerously close to the staircase. In a flash, Bruno reacted, his jaws gently grasping Leo's clothes, pulling him back from the brink. Sarah and David rushed in, witnessing Bruno holding their son. Panic seized them. They saw only Bruno's teeth and misinterpreted the scene. Fear clouded their judgment, and in a moment of terror, they made a terrible decision. They sent Bruno away to a distant animal shelter. Days bled into weeks. At the shelter, Bruno, usually so playful, became withdrawn, refusing food, his bright eyes dimming with sorrow. He missed Leo, the baby he'd saved. Back home, Leo would often crawl towards Bruno's old spot, whimpering, sensing his friend's absence. Guilt gnawed at Sarah and David. They reviewed their home security footage, the truth hitting them like a tidal wave. The video clearly showed Bruno's heroic act, his selfless intervention. Tears streamed down their faces as they saw the misunderstanding. They raced to the shelter, their hearts pounding with regret. The moment Bruno saw them, his tail thumped a joyous rhythm against the ground. His eyes, once dull, sparkled with recognition. Leo, giggling, reached out to Bruno. The reunion was filled with joyful barks, happy cries, and relieved sighs. From that day forward, Bruno's place in their family was secure. His loyalty and love reaffirmed. They learned a harsh lesson about the importance of understanding and the devastating consequences of unchecked fear. The tower and the knowledge it held for generations to come. Her journey had just begun, and she looked forward to every new secret she would uncover. The weight of her responsibility never felt heavy, but rather like a warm cloak of purpose. She loved the tower, the village, and her family. She knew that the key had chosen her for a reason, and she was ready for whatever adventure lay ahead. She was the keeper of the moon tower, and she was ready. Once upon a time, in a peaceful village, nestled beside a whispering river, lived a young girl named Aisha. Her days were filled with the simple joys of childhood, chasing butterflies in sun-dappled meadows, helping her grandmother gather berries in the twilight, and listening to her grandfather's captivating tales under the starlit sky. Her grandfather, a man weathered by time but with eyes that held the wisdom of ages, was her confidant, her teacher, her friend. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, Aisha posed a question that tugged at her grandfather's heart. "Grandpa," she began, her voice soft as the evening breeze, "what is love?" Her grandfather smiled, a gentle crinkle forming at the corners of his eyes. He began a tale of Ali, a boy from their village, known not for his wealth or strength, but for the boundless love he shared with everyone. Ali, the story went, treated each person with kindness and compassion, regardless of their station in life. He helped the poor, comforted the grieving, and shared his meager possessions with those less fortunate. One day, a devastating flood swept through the village, leaving behind a trail of destruction and despair. While others succumbed to fear and hopelessness, Ali emerged as a beacon of hope. He worked tirelessly, rescuing people, rebuilding homes, sharing food, and offering comfort. Aisha, captivated by the tale, asked, "But, Grandpa, didn't he ever get tired?" Her grandfather nodded. "Yes," he said. "But Ali always said, love is like a seed. The more you give, the more it grows." The story continued, describing how Ali's actions inspired others, how his selfless love transformed the village, creating a community bound together by compassion and mutual support. As Ali grew old, he was honored by the village, not for his wealth or achievements, but for the love he had sown into the hearts of his people. He taught them that love isn't merely a feeling, it's a choice, a commitment, an action. Aisha listened intently, her young heart touched by the story. She understood that love wasn't a fleeting emotion but a steady flame, nurtured by kindness, patience, and understanding. The story ended, but its message lingered, a warm glow in Aisha's heart, illuminating her understanding of love's enduring power. Once upon a time, in a dense forest, lived a curious crow named Caro. Unlike the other crows, who were content with their simple lives, Caro often felt there was more to the world beyond the forest. He would watch the sun rise and set, wishing he could explore beyond the treetops. While other crows searched for food and stayed close to home, Caro would fly high, venturing farther than any crow, visiting distant hills, fields, and villages. One day, while flying over a village, Caro noticed something shiny in the grass below. Intrigued, he swooped down to investigate. To his delight, he found a small golden coin. Excited, Caro picked it up and flew back to the forest to show the other crows. However, when he presented the coin, they laughed and dismissed it. "What use is that shiny metal to us? We have everything we need," they said. Undeterred, Caro decided to explore further. The next day, he flew back to the village and dropped the coin in the market square. A merchant noticed it and was amazed by its value. Grateful, he offered Caro a beautiful necklace made of jewels in exchange. When Caro returned to the forest wearing the necklace, the other crows were astonished. They gathered around, eager to know how he got such a treasure. Caro smiled and explained that by venturing beyond the forest and embracing curiosity, he found something valuable. He taught them the importance of exploration and its rewards. Inspired by Caro, the crows began to look beyond their comfort zone and explore the world. Caro continued his adventures, always returning with new stories and treasures, forever changing the lives of his fellow crows and proving that curiosity and exploration can lead to unexpected riches. The forest, once a place of limited horizons, became a launching pad for countless adventures, all thanks to the courageous spirit of Caro, the crow who dared to look beyond the trees. Deep in the heart of the forest, an ant hill thrived with thousands of busy ants. Among them was Ziri, a small yet curious ant who always dreamed of doing something great. While the worker ants gathered food and the soldiers guarded the colony, Ziri wanted to explore beyond the tunnels. One day, dark clouds covered the sky, and heavy rain began to pour. The raindrops were massive for the tiny ants, turning the ground into a dangerous flood. Water rushed through the tunnels, forcing the colony to move to higher ground. The queen ordered the ants to evacuate, but in the chaos, a group of young ants got trapped inside a sinking tunnel. Panic spread as the floodwaters rose, threatening their lives. Ziri refused to stand by helplessly. She quickly gathered a team of worker ants and led them to a fallen leaf. "This will be our boat," she said. They climbed on and paddled through the flood, using tiny sticks as oars. The water was rough, carrying debris, but Ziri kept them focused. "We can do this together," she encouraged. After a tough journey, they reached the trapped ants. Ziri carefully helped them climb onto the leaf raft, making sure no one was left behind. The way back was harder as the current pushed against them, but with teamwork and determination, they paddled to safety. The entire colony cheered as Ziri and her team returned. That night, the queen honored her for her bravery. Her story was told throughout the colony, a testament that even the smallest ant could make the biggest difference. Ziri, once just a curious ant, became a symbol of courage and leadership, forever remembered for her daring rescue.
Once upon a time, in a lush green forest, there lived a little squirrel named Nibby. Nibby was the smallest of all the squirrels, but he had the biggest heart. While other animals gathered food or played, Nibby dreamed of doing something brave. One day, as Nibby was collecting acorns, he heard a loud cry. He ran toward the sound and saw a tiny bird stuck between two branches. It was Pip, the baby sparrow, who had fallen from his nest. "Don't worry, Pip. I'll help you," Nibby said bravely. Nibby tried to push the branches apart, but they were too strong. He needed help. He quickly scurried to his friends, the rabbits, the deer, and the wise old owl. "Pip is stuck. We must help him." The animals rushed to the tree. The deer gently pushed the branches, the rabbits dug around the roots, and Nibby carefully pulled Pip out with his tiny paws. "Hooray! You did it, Nibby," cheered the animals. Pip's mother flew down and hugged her little one. "Thank you, Nibby. You are the bravest squirrel in the forest." From that day on, Nibby was no longer seen as the smallest squirrel. He was known as the bravest of them all. And so, Nibby learned that courage isn't about size, it's about...
Once upon a time, in a lush green jungle, lived a little elephant named Ellie. Unlike other elephants, Ellie had a big dream she wanted to fly like the birds. Every day, she watched colorful parrots, soaring eagles, and tiny sparrows flapping their wings, wishing she could join them. One day, Ellie shared her dream with her jungle friends. The monkeys laughed, the deer smiled, and even the wise old turtle chuckled. "Elephants are meant to walk, not fly," they said. But Ellie refused to give up. She tried jumping from a small hill thud. She landed on the soft grass. She tried flapping giant leaves, like wings whoosh. Nothing happened. She even tied balloons to her back, but they popped one by one. Feeling sad, Ellie sat near the river. Just then, a friendly eagle named Zara flew down. "Why do you look so upset, little one?" she asked. Ellie sighed. "I want to fly, but no matter what I do, I can't." Zara smiled. "You may not have wings, but you have something special, your strength and kindness." She took Ellie to a high hill where a baby bird had fallen. The poor chick was scared. Ellie gently lifted the bird with her trunk and placed it back in the nest. The mother bird chirped happily, thanking Ellie. Zara said, "See, you may not fly like us, but you can help others reach new heights." Ellie smiled. She realized she didn't need wings to be special. She could lift others up instead. From that day on, Ellie became the jungle's hero, always helping others. She felt like she was soaring higher than ever before.
In a peaceful village, there was a large and beautiful farm where many hens lived happily. Their owner, Uncle Karim, took great care of them. Every morning, as the sun rose, the hens would leave their coop, clucking and chirping cheerfully. They spent their day pecking at grains, drinking water from the pond, and playing with each other. Among them was Galabi, the wisest and most cautious hen. She always looked out for her fellow hens and made sure they stayed safe. Near the farm was a dense forest where a cunning fox lived. Every day, she watched the hens and dreamed of catching them for a feast. She had tried many times before, but the strong fences and the hens' alertness always prevented her from succeeding. This time, however, she came up with a new, clever plan. One morning, the fox pretended to be sick. She limped toward the farm, groaning in a weak voice, "Oh, is there anyone who can help me? I am very sick and hungry." The kind-hearted hens looked at each other, feeling pity for the poor creature. Some wanted to go near her, but Galabi immediately stopped them. "Wait," she said. "This fox is very cunning. She might be trying to trick us." "But she looks so weak," one hen said. "Maybe she really needs help." Galabi thought for a moment and then whispered a plan to the other hens. They all nodded and quickly got to work. Together, they dug a deep pit in the yard and covered it with dry leaves and twigs. Then, they walked closer to the fox and said, "We want to help you. Come with us inside the farm. We have food and water for you." The fox was overjoyed. Finally, she thought, "These foolish hens have fallen into my trap. Now I will have a feast." As she took a few steps forward, she suddenly felt the ground disappear beneath her feet. "Ah!" she screamed as she fell straight into the deep pit. The hens burst into laughter and cheered for Galabi's cleverness. Uncle Karim heard the commotion and rushed outside. When he saw the trapped fox, he smiled and said, "Well done, my smart hens. You have saved yourselves." He then drove the fox far away into the forest, making sure she would never return. From that day on, the hens became even more united and cautious. They learned that intelligence and teamwork could protect them from even the trickiest dangers. Moral of the story: wisdom, unity, and careful thinking can help us overcome even the most cunning enemies.
Ahmed was an ordinary yet ambitious young man living in a small village. He belonged to a modest family with limited resources but unlimited dreams. He always believed that if he got just one opportunity, he could change his destiny and turn his dreams into reality. One day, while exploring an old bookstore, Ahmed stumbled upon a strange-looking clock. Unlike ordinary clocks, its hands moved backward. Intrigued, he picked it up and examined it closely. The shopkeeper, an old man with wise eyes, noticed his curiosity and said, "This is no ordinary clock. It has the power to take you back in time. But be warned, changing the past comes with consequences." Ahmed's heart raced with excitement. He had always wished for a second chance to fix his past mistakes. Without thinking twice, he bought the clock and rushed home. Sitting on his bed, he took a deep breath and turned the dial backward. In an instant, a strange sensation washed over him, and everything around him blurred. When Ahmed opened his eyes, he found himself standing in his old schoolyard, surrounded by familiar faces, his younger self among them. It took him a moment to realize that he had actually traveled back in time. This was his chance to rewrite his story. Determined to change his fate, Ahmed approached his younger self and tried to guide him. He warned him about the mistakes he would make, advised him to study harder, and encouraged him to seize opportunities he had once ignored. At first, everything seemed to go as planned. His younger self listened, made better choices, and started excelling in school. Ahmed felt a deep sense of satisfaction, believing he had secured a better future for himself.
But soon, things took a strange turn. The more he interfered with the past, the more his memories of the future started fading. At first, it was small things, forgetting a childhood friend's name or struggling to recall certain events. But as time passed, his entire existence began to blur. One day, he looked at his hands and gasped, they were turning transparent. Panic surged through him as he realized what was happening. By altering his past too much, he had disrupted the natural flow of time. He was no longer meant to exist. Frantically, Ahmed searched for the clock, but it had disappeared. His vision darkened, and his body began dissolving into nothingness. As he took his final breath, he heard the shopkeeper's voice echoing in the void. You cannot rewrite destiny without losing yourself in the process. And then, Ahmed was gone, just a forgotten whisper in the endless loop of time.
In the heart of the whispering woods, where golden sunlight danced through the leaves and the river hummed a soft tune, lived a little fox named Felix. Felix was not like the other foxes. While they hunted and played, he loved to explore and uncover mysteries hidden in the forest. One day, while wandering near the old willow tree, Felix noticed something unusual. The ground beneath his paws felt softer, as if something had been buried there. His curiosity sparked, and he started digging. After a few minutes, his tiny paws hit something hard. It was a small wooden box covered in moss. Felix's eyes widened with excitement. A treasure, he whispered to himself. But the box was locked. He needed help, so he ran to his best friend, Toby the turtle. Toby was slow but very wise. Toby, I found a mysterious box, but it's locked. What should we do? Toby blinked slowly and said, every lock has a key. Maybe the old owl knows where it is. Excited, Felix and Toby made their way to Oakley, the wise old owl who lived in the tallest tree. Oakley, we found a locked box under the willow tree. Do you know where the key might be? Felix asked eagerly. Oakley fluffed his feathers and thought for a moment. Ah, the hidden treasure of Whispering Woods. Long ago, a kind old badger buried it, saying only the pure of heart could find the key. You must prove your kindness, Felix. Felix nodded. How do I do that? Oakley smiled. Help those in need, and the forest will guide you. Felix took Oakley's words to heart. Over the next few days, he helped a baby rabbit find its way home, shared his food with a hungry sparrow, and even helped a hedgehog who was stuck in a thorn bush. One evening, as Felix was resting under the willow tree, he noticed something shiny near the riverbank. Curious, he dug a little and gasped. It was an old, rusty key. His heart pounded with excitement as he rushed back to the buried box. With Toby and Oakley watching, Felix turned the key in the lock. Click! The box creaked open, revealing a beautiful golden acorn with an inscription. Kindness is the greatest treasure of all. Felix beamed with joy. The treasure wasn't gold or jewels, but a reminder that his good heart was the most valuable thing in the forest. From that day on, Felix was no longer just a little fox, he was the guardian of kindness in Whispering Woods. And so, he learned that true treasures are not found in boxes, but in the good deeds we do for others.
In a quiet village nestled between rolling hills and vast green fields, lived a young man named Umair. Unlike his peers, Umair never cared about time. He woke up late, wasted hours on meaningless activities, and believed that life would always give him more chances. His father, an old but wise man, often advised him, "Son, time is like flowing water. Once gone, it never returns. Use it wisely." But Umair would shrug off his father's words, thinking they were mere ramblings of an old man. One day, the village announced a grand competition, a test of skill, intelligence, and endurance. The winner would be granted a scholarship to study in the city, an opportunity that many dreamed of. Umair's best friend, Osman, encouraged him to participate. "This is your chance to do something great," Osman said excitedly. Umair hesitated but eventually agreed. However, unlike the other participants, he did not prepare. He continued his lazy routine, wasting time with idle gossip and delaying practice. I still have time, he reassured himself. On the day of the competition, the village square buzzed with excitement. Participants were given 3 challenges: an obstacle course to test strength, a puzzle to test intelligence, and a speech to assess confidence. As the event began, Omer realized he was far behind. The obstacle course drained him because he had never trained. The puzzle confused him because he had never practiced logical thinking. And when it was time to give a speech, he hesitated, struggling to find the right words. Meanwhile, Osman, who had spent weeks preparing, performed each task flawlessly. By the end of the competition, Osman was declared the winner, while Umair stood in the crowd, feeling the weight of his mistakes. His father walked up to him, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. "Do you understand now?" he asked. Umair nodded, his eyes filled with regret. "I wasted my time and lost a great opportunity." From that day on, Umair changed. He started waking up early, planning his days, and valuing every moment. Years later, he built a successful business and became known for his discipline and hard work. Whenever people asked about his transformation, he would smile and say, "I learned the hard way that time waits for no one." It is
In the golden grasslands of Africa lived a kind giraffe named Gigi. She was the tallest among all animals, with a long neck that could reach the highest leaves. But Gigi wasn't just tall, she was also wise and kind. One hot summer, a terrible drought struck the land. The rivers dried up, and food became scarce. The smaller animals, like rabbits and turtles, struggled to find water. Gigi watched her thirsty friends suffer and knew she had to help. Using her height, she spotted a hidden oasis deep in the jungle. It was far away, but she was determined to lead the animals there. She called out to the zebras, monkeys, and antelopes, saying, "Follow me, I know where we can find water." The journey was long and difficult. The scorching sun made the ground too hot, and some animals grew tired. Gigi let the smallest animals ride on her back, and encouraged the others to keep going. She never gave up, even when she felt exhausted herself. Finally,